Well, folks, another show, another trash pay-per-view. Of course, we had to deal with the worst of the worst, and people just keep with the blind, with the dumbest crap I've seen in a minute. Yo, I'm sorry, gotta mute that. So, Extreme Rules was just terrible. In the absence that we at least had one decent match in Dolph Ziggler and McIntyre, we obviously knew he was going to win whatever handicap Ziggler was going to give him. And the most unique thing ever was he's the only one to have the extreme rules, while McIntyre got to wrestle while doing the regular rules in the wrestling match. So if he gets counted out or DQ'd, he loses the belt either way. McIntyre still won the title. It was beyond the point. Like, Ziggler stuck in mid-card purgatory forever. Bayley and Sasha will consistently be ratings killers. They made the most underwhelming U.S. title run. And this is not the second time they did this. They screwed over with Apollo Crews. I already have my own overcoming complaints with the guy. I obviously have nothing personal to say about Apollo. He seems to be a hard-working guy with pretty much a good attitude, or probably, and has athleticism. I'm not gonna disrespect him on that note. I just feel like he's bland. He has no substance to him. He has no personality, and it just shows that if you have athletics and good build, you could be a mainstay unless you're EC3. It's just bad to just watch this. You had two good wrestlers in Sasha Banks and Asuka, and Bayley somehow being the impromptu referee after a green mist gone wrong. And if he just called the bell and they ended it in DQ, it could have been fine. It could have been a rematch, or Bayley could have just hit her with the belt, get the ref to call the pin because Asuka's getting pinned, and that could have been the finish. Sure, it would have been dumb, but it would have been a cheap and easy way for Sasha to walk away with the belt. Then they pulled some stuff that was borderline dumb, like just making her wear the referee shirt and just call for the pin with her forcibly just screaming at the timekeeper to call for the bell. That's just agitating as hell. There was nothing to look forward to in this pay-per-view, and if you thought differently, you're an idiot. I'm not going to judge you if you thought the show was fine. To you, I just think, in my opinion, the show sucked in every way, shape, or form. It sucked. This beat the Money in the Bank review. This beat Backlash, because at least I can call at least 3 matches that I wouldn't mind watching back. This show, borderline, sucked. And you have the right to think opposite of my opinion, but in my humblest opinion, it sucked that Kevin Owens faced off against Murphy at the kickoff show. I did not watch the kickoff show. I didn't even watch the opening match that was Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro for the tag titles against the New Day. And obviously, I at least saw the post match where it ended up with Nakamura and Cesaro walking off with the SmackDown tag titles. Whoop-de-doo. They must have had a couple uppercuts, a couple knees, a couple high spots, whatever, and pretty much ended up watching it. If you have any other opinions how the match ended in your opinion, I'll be fine to type it up in the comment section if you have any of your favorite highlights. But we're going to go with Nikki Cross against Bayley for the SmackDown Women's title, with the semblance that we actually care about Bayley, and we actually care that I really grown my confidence of really being a top heel in the business, while there's no official fans that actually know if I'm being a good heel or not. So I think like I'm doing well for my character. Shut up! You've been a ratings killer since you've been heel. There's nothing intriguing about Bayley turning heel. You fought differently, and you think, oh my gosh, coming from the NXT and this from the This Is Your Life segment, then it's bland. Everybody on the roster is bland, and Bayley's the antithesis. If you're, it's to be bland, but to have some semblance of talent. She has no talent. This match didn't tell a story. After the Nakamura match, the tag title match, they come around with this awkward thing backstage involving Nikki Cross getting talked to by Kairi Sane, Asuka, and Alexa Bliss for a bit of hype up for her match. You have to get building something up, and then Kairi just came out of nowhere just shouting, "But if you lose, we'll still be here to support you." Well, that came out of nowhere, but I'll try my best. That was the most awkward segment they could have had in the beginning of the show. They could have had that in the beginning of the pay-per-view, and it could have made more sense. You could have come doubting herself. She wouldn't be okay doing some of her moves, and they could have told the story. They don't want to tell stories. They just want to wrestle and wrestle. And Nikki Cross is crazy. She comes around just hopping through different parts of the ring apron, spinning neck breakers. Oh God, and just flailing about over to the corner. She comes, and she just comes around just looking crazy while wearing black pants. This match was just as forgettable as it can be, and it came up with those boss brass knucks that Sasha Banks rarely uses, even though she's heel. But Bayley used it for a cheap shot to the gut, and stuck with that skull crushing, that diving headbuster onto the floor to pick up the win. Why don't they do this for more recent title defenses since she's been champion for over 200 days by now? So this match was forgettable in the absence of no storytelling involved into this, into the absence of me caring about these characters, and how bland Bayley has been as a women's champion, and no source of actually getting anybody over the source of this. Thanks, they're still going to treat Nikki Cross like a freaking comedic relief. What's the point of this match? It was so forgettable. It had a few missile drop kicks. The worst ways for Nikki Cross to use the ring apron in general. Hopefully the match opener was better than this. Of course, we had the United States Championship match that technically wasn't a match, because it's said by the commentators of Tom Phillips going over the injury over his pre-match physical, with Apollo Crews not being able to, be approved for the match. So MVP just takes the United States title that Apollo Crews didn't even have a chance to defend, and he lost via forfeit, and did a joke involving Lashley's full Nelson. We have no source of any logic in this anyway. I don't care. Bit underwhelming. They could have done this backstage, but I guess to get some semblance of fake heat, because we know that the fans are literally just NXT superstars, that it just makes it less bittersweet. I have nothing to call in the MVP segment. Thanks, it wasn't even a match. Next up was the eye for an eye match. No Dominic, no source of anything. These guys tried to make this more hardcore, but it said they had to dispatch the person's eye, really rip it out, other than just stab it. So this made no sense in the semblance of hardcore, and they would try to make it if you guys watched Dawn of the Dead, or no, I think it was Hot Fuzz. It had something to do with eye gouging. No, I think it was Hot Fuzz. Dawn of the Dead. It had something to do with an eye gouging prank but the guy used ketchup pack-up. That's how I thought this match was going to end. It ended up with Rollins poking, trying to push his eye out a bit too hard on the steel steps, and they had it over ref stoppage. So you didn't even get the full end of it. So I think Wrestling Mixtape is going to get pissed off about that. Uh, it just this match was okay for it being somewhat of a hardcore match. The funnest part was curb stomp by Rey Mysterio. Nice counters over to the 619. It just felt like it was just there. The match had no semblance of being threatening. Thanks, none of these guys seem reasonable enough to go hardcore. And everything Rollins does is he already ended Sting's career, so I don't think you can do anything more hardcore than that. Thanks, you're in a match, so you have the absolute trust of the wrestler that you're not going to F him up. Unless you want to do an eye for eye match involving Nia Jax, she will rip that shit off if you say it's a work. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that. All I know was there were scrapes with the kendo sticks. They tried to use some skinny neck thing. Even in the beginning of the match, freaking Rollins was holding a wrench thinking that's an easy way to poke a man's eye out instead of just whacking him in the head with the thing. So, yeah, this was an okay match with I think it was Kayla, I think that's her name, going backstage to say, well, the eye's still in his socket, but yeah, he'll still be able to see. And Dominic didn't even do a goddamn thing. So the point of that was just to show that Rollins was dangerous, or something to do with La Familia. You don't disrespect my familia, Rollins. And an eye for an eye. Like, there's nothing threatening about Rey Mysterio. What else we had in this show? We, of course, had the Raw Women's title on the line. And this was so goddamn disappointing. It should be a crime to know that Asuka would actually lose the women's title in pretty much the worst way. And we thought she would be holding it until SummerSlam, but probably they'll be doing some double champ shit until August. And it's so underwhelming in the source of her losing the title just like this, because she won it in the worst way possible, with it being handed to her by a woman pregnant to defend it. And off that circumstance, we thought Asuka would have some reasonable defenses, and she would lose it. But like Kyrie seen or something, so many times she's been mishandled, and they just give it to Sasha Banks like that, bro. I don't know why. Why is this part of the show? I don't know, man. The match was okay. There were some decent counters in the Meteoras. Top rope into a high knee strike over to the jaw. Uh, Roundhouse kick, a running hurricane, a Rana from the top. The match was going fine, man. Asuka was getting stomped out over to the corner. A sliding knee strike. Of course, that dumb little running butt thing she does out to the second rope. The match was getting as Monday Night Raw as it got. Running powerbomb that got countered into tosses into the plexiglass, and she kept doing that a lot outside of the ring. And the match was okay until they were going right into the ref bump involving as soon as there was a counter for the sleeper hold, and Asuka was about to do the green mist, like she did that usually when she was a heel, so somehow she brought that back since like her NXT shit. And if you watched it, I don't care. Yeah, so she green missed the referee. Referee was knocked down. Bayley came with the SmackDown women with the WWE Women's Tag Titles, hit her in the back with it, and then somehow she hits Asuka. So it'll be like it's a cheap finish, but it works in the semblance of Sasha getting her heat, something like that, and it shows them it still is a cohesive unit. Even though I thought Bayley would try to screw her because she did nearly cost her the women's title back at WrestleMania, so it would be a semblance of payback for that. But that wouldn't mean storytelling. That would actually mean relevant history. That would actually mean getting you to watch the next show or pay-per-view. No, they made Bayley dress up as a referee out of nowhere, taking off the ref's t-shirt instead of wiping his face and making him count the pin. Thanks, you knocked her with the title. So that obviously means an instant 1, 2, 3. But they made Bayley call the cover, command the. It's just brain dead. Command him to ring the bell, the timekeeper to ring the bell, and Asuka officially. Sasha Banks wins the women's title. It's so dumb and it's so abundant. It's so overbooked. This was literally the worst match of the night. And this could have been a passable match. They had so many botches. They had slip ups over punches. Uh, a top rope. I think it was supposed to be a top rope cross body press, and she slipped and falls, and Asuka still had to sell it. The match was not good. I mean, the finish was not good. The match was just barely passable, and they overbooked this to the spot of showing that the golden models, role models, are on a roll. They are dominating the women's, and they would take over. I don't give a shit. This is terrible. This is terrible. We of course had the WWE Championship on the line, involving Ziggler and McIntyre in his third title defense, mind you. No, I think this is his fourth. With obviously McIntyre was going to win with Ziggler that continues to look like a rapist every freaking year, stuck in mid-card purgatory, just waiting for another guy that is a mid-carder that's holding the world title to give him a shot. And he'll always end up losing. You lose to Kofi Kingston, you're losing to McIntyre. And if Kofi Kingston is WWE champion, you lose to him. You were never winning a match. It was fine. Drop kicks, good. I think there was some passable counters until McIntyre thinks he was going to break the rules and cost himself the title. And the commentary has no source of actually selling the fact that McIntyre would try to break the rules just so we can punish Ziggler some more. He did a vertical suplex on the outside other than on the table, because that would count as a DQ. Tossing chairs. I think there was a chair shot to the head, so they run some semblance of Ziggler always getting his upper hand whenever McIntyre tried to screw up and think he can actually cause an ODQ. And off Ziggler, literally off the zigzag, nearly getting the 3 count and saying, "Why don't you die?" And he kept screaming. I obviously knew kip up, Claymore kick. That would be the end of the match. 1, 2, 3. This was literally one of the funner matches of the night with a decent stipulation, but he could have called this 2 weeks ago and it could have been fine for a build for McIntyre to know that he's completely powerless in a match that he doesn't even get to do what his opponent gets to do to him. So it could have been some semblance of that, and they could have just had a no-touch clause in the contract signing for McIntyre not to beat him up. So it would have made sense. I don't understand why don't they do storytelling like that anymore. It was more convincing in 2000, but they know that we'd just be ripping off The Rock and Chris Benoit or some stuff like that. I don't know, man. This match was fine as it is, but this feels like something they do on Monday Night Raw. This doesn't feel like it was a pay-per-view match. Next up was, of course, the Swamp Fight match. The Swamp Fight. And of course, it was spooky, scary. Swamp rapist Bray Wyatt instead of the Fiend. Oh man, the Fiend Bray Wyatt. Oh yeah. Oh god, why? The Swamp Fight with Bray Wyatt was pretty much half-assed booking to bring some semblance of mythos or some interest back to Bray Wyatt to him losing to a near pushing 60 Goldberg, and him being overshadowed in the WrestleMania card. No one gives a damn about Bray Wyatt, and he shows that to himself. This match had no reason to exist, other to bring some semblance of of Bray Wyatt being relevant on the SmackDown roster, and literally just bring Braun Strowman into this like he already doesn't have a relevant time being Universal Champion anyway. The match was just him beating up. This was literally just a boneyard match, except less interest. So you literally just had him punching, kicking. He got stuck in chains until he got bitten by a snake to what looked to be, I guess, Sister Abigail, and then he got tossed out again. He beats the crap out of this random guy that looks like a better looking Heath Slater, and he got caught up on fire. And then he started beating up Bray Wyatt for a while. Stuck into the boat. He beat his ass on the boat. I think he power slammed him, I think. Tossed him on the boat. Braun came again to check. He seemed to escape and then hit him with his sister Abigail. Braun kicked him outside of what looks to be some kind of patio onto the pond, even though he could just easily swim out of it. But then the Fiend emerged and all that bullcrap. The match, I hate that cinematic crap. It doesn't show like any sort of entertainment or shows any source of the Fiend, because he's been underwhelming since October, and that was like when the hype factor, he's going to win the world title. We're actually going to push the moon on him. And it's so depressing. It's so underwhelming. It's just bad. The semblance of knowing that you could just be in a cinematic moment and just overshadow the title match just because Braun was part of a faction for under a year makes no sense. Or they want to bring some factor into Braun actually having a personal relation with Bray and him just saying, Scary, this is my past self. You can't beat my past self. And I'm the Fiend. It's so terrible. And you think otherwise, more power to you. It's just, that's not how you're gonna grab viewers, bro. It's not. And that corny crap doesn't work. Kids are not gonna buy into it. Older fans are not gonna buy into it. And it showed no source of Bray getting stronger in the deep end other than him just looking scary. Kane, on the other hand, back when he had his mask off, beat the shit out of everybody. Sure, he got treated as still like a purgatory joke, but he does his job to make sure he's intimidating, hard to beat, and you want to see him get his ass kicked. When he was feuding with Shane, when he was feuding with Rob Van Dam, when he was feuding against The Undertaker, when he was feuding against anybody possible, even though Kane was a major guy to beat. Even when he didn't have the title with him. And for most of the time he didn't. So this was just gay, in my opinion. My apologies for saying that, but it was. There is no source of entertainment factor. It just felt comedic in the semblance that we think this is supposed to be taken seriously. This feud completely took in out of nowhere because we know if we stick with the Miz and Morrison feud involving Braun, it would make no sense. It'd be like a lower mid-card feud with somebody holding on to the world title. And it just felt more underwhelming the more the so-called swamp fight went on. So, yeah, I just thought that the match was the entire segment, because it wasn't a match, it was a segment. It was no match. But if you thought differently, comment down in the comment section below. I hate this with a passion. I hated the show with a passion. That's a come from the DST show. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm about to take some Tylenol, folks. That's it coming from me.